Hey everybody, Steven here, and today I'll be reviewing the Sceptre C345B QUN168 Ultrawide monitor. As always, I'll get into the specs first before getting into the things that I like about the monitor. I'll talk about the things that I don't like about the monitor, and then I'll wrap everything up. With that being said, let's get into the specs. The Sceptre C345B QUN168 monitor is a 34-inch ultrawide VA panel with a 1000R curve, 165Hz refresh rate, and a 1 millisecond motion picture response time that Sceptre says is the same as a 4 millisecond gray to gray response time with overdrive enabled. The backlight type with this panel is LED with 30,000 plus hours of life. This has anti-flicker and has an anti-glare surface treatment with a 3H hardness. The typical peak brightness is 600 nits with a peak brightness of 1000 nits, and Sceptre has had this VESA certified for the HDR 1000 with 16 local dimming zones. In the menu you will have the option for HDR 600 or 1000. This covers 99% of the sRGB color gamut and 85% of the NTSC color gamut with a 3000:1 contrast ratio and a 1,000,000:1 dynamic contrast ratio. On the back of the panel, you will find 3 HDMI 2.0 ports, 1 DP 1.4 port, and a 3.5mm headphone jack. You will also find a USB Type-C port, which you can display the 3440 by 1440p resolution at 100Hz if you're wanting to connect your laptop to this. It can also be used to charge your electronics, such as your phone. The monitor has two 3-watt speakers also. The stand has a height adjustment of 3.74 inches, and measuring from the bottom of the panel to the desk at its lowest height, it is 4.125 inches, and at its highest point, it is 7.825 inches. The swivel is 15 degrees to the left and to the right, and this can tilt 15 degrees backwards and 5 degrees forwards. In the box, you will find the monitor, neck, stand, screwdriver, wall mount plate with a 75mm by 75mm pattern, stand screws, user manual, and warranty card. This comes with a 1-year limited parts and labor warranty. Next, let's cover the panel settings. The menu button is a single button at the bottom of the monitor in the center. There you will find the quick start, picture, color, and system settings. I won't cover everything in the menu, but I do want to showcase a couple things, starting with the presets in the picture tab. Here you will find user, standard, RTS, FPS, eco, and movie. I personally have been using the FPS preset and really like it, but keep in mind it disables the ability to adjust backlight, brightness, contrast, and dynamic contrast ratio, which is available in user only. The standard preset allows you to adjust the dynamic contrast ratio also, but that's it. Quick side note, the video of the presets here isn't doing it justice, as there doesn't seem to be much of a difference, but it's definitely there in person. My camera is just auto adjusting the exposure, which is affecting how it looks. Moving on, we have the color tab and color temperature here, which has normal, warm, user, and cool. User mode allows you to adjust the RGB colors as well as the advanced colors. Here you can also adjust gamma, tint, saturation, and blue light shift. After that, we have system, where you can enable overdrive, adaptive sync, HDR, change the backlight colors, and adjust the OSD. For adaptive sync, you have to enable this to enable G-Sync compatibility mode in the NVIDIA control panel, but this isn't officially certified by NVIDIA. For overdrive, you have to disable adaptive sync and then turn the refresh rate to 144Hz in the NVIDIA or AMD control panel in order to access it. After that, you have low, medium, or high for the overdrive. For the backlight colors, you have spectrum, user, and off. In user mode, you can adjust the light mode to breathing, static, or strobe, and then you can actually change the color to red, purple, blue, cyan, green, or yellow. You can also adjust the brightness from weak to mild to strong. So that's what you will find in the panel settings. Now let's do a quick sound test for the speakers. Here I'll be doing playback for Halo Infinite gameplay, and with this we have the volume at 100%, 75%, 50%, and 25%. This will be labeled on the screen. My camera is roughly my same sitting distance away from the monitor, and I'm going to try to make sure that the levels in post reflect what this actually sounds like in person, instead of boosting the levels up so it actually sounds louder than it really does in person. So now that I've covered the specs and panel settings, let's cover what I like about this monitor. In my unboxing video, I mentioned this might take the top spot for my favorite ultra-wide monitor, and I'm happy to say that it officially has. This monitor is amazing. The colors, vibrancy, nits, and overall performance are incredible. Other monitors with similar specs and performance can sell for $650 to $850, so the $500 price tag here is worth every penny. The 1000R curve looks great and makes more sense for an ultra-wide panel in my opinion over a 27 or 32-inch monitor, as it has more curve. I personally don't notice any text morphing towards the edge with this monitor either, which is great. This being a VA panel with a 1 millisecond motion picture response time, I expect a certain level of ghosting and black smearing, but this has been pretty minimal and would be towards the top of my list for VA panel monitors with a 1 millisecond motion picture response time that I've tested in terms of the ghosting and the black smearing. With that being said though, it is still there, it's just very minimal. I think for most casual and enthusiastic PC players, this will be an amazing product, but for competitive FPS players, it will probably be more noticeable, which is why those players usually go for a 1 millisecond gray to gray response time panel over a 1 millisecond motion picture response time panel. With that being said, enabling overdrive does improve the response time, and this is one of the few monitors I've used where enabling overdrive doesn't cause bad pixelation or coloring. When doing the UFO test for ghosting, you can actually see the reduction in ghosting without causing any noticeable inverse ghosting, so I've personally been using the high overdrive setting on this monitor. Now this is really hard to actually showcase with my camera, unfortunately. Even if I'm just taking pictures of it, it just doesn't do it justice. I don't have the trail pursuit set up to actually film this where it would actually look really, really good, hopefully down the road. So unfortunately, you're just gonna have to kind of take my word on this, but for me, this does look really good in person when the overdrive is set to high, and I'm not seeing this creating any other issues elsewhere in terms of, like I said, pixelation, inverse ghosting, or anything like that with this monitor, which is exciting to see. Next, the HDR here is really good. Now it only has 16 local dimming zones, but with this being certified by VESA, it is one of the better HDR experiences I've had with any monitor. The option of HDR 600 or 1000 here is great, and playing Doom Eternal, I've noticed the range of adjustments with HDR 1000 over HDR 600 is noticeable, but once it's set to your liking, it would be hard to tell if you had HDR 600 or 1000 on, unless you set your whites extremely high, which would utilize the extra nits with HDR 1000. Something else I want to cover really quick here, and I actually talked about it in my unboxing video. The Nebula series is actually just white right now, but they're actually going to be releasing a black version of all of these monitors early next year sometime. So that is really exciting news, because that's one of the questions I get with this. They're like, I really like that, but I want the black version of it. They don't make one because it doesn't match my rig. Now, the good thing is for me, I have an ITX build that is black and white, so this fit perfect for me, and hopefully it does for other people. But if you wait a little bit, you will find that the black version of this should be available sometime Q1 of 2022. Now with the current state of supply chain issues in the world, if they don't get it out right then, don't worry, it will for sure happen. There just might be some delays somewhere in the supply chain when it comes to actually getting these out. Moving on though, let's talk about what I don't like about this monitor, and it's pretty much the same as my unboxing video, and I wouldn't even call these negatives for all of these. A lot of these are actually just preference things that I prefer with most monitors that I use. So all of these things, they may not need to actually adjust, or it's things that you may not actually want out of your monitor. So to start, the speakers aren't bad, they just could be a little bit louder with this. That's something that most people, and myself included, I don't ever actually use the monitor speakers. It's kind of like a nice to have, but I'm always using a headset. It's not something that I actually rely on. So again, it's not something that everybody would need. After that, extra USB ports. That's something, again, not everybody's going to need, but it's something that I actually personally prefer because I'm always running out of USB ports on my PC just because I use a lot of different peripherals and things like that with my computer. I did mention here too that I didn't notice any text morphing towards the edge of the panel, which is great, but the panel can actually make text look pixelated sometimes, and this actually is going to boil down to your settings. So I personally have the sharpness adjusted from 50% to 25%, and that's actually helped a lot. And then I've tried to adjust some things in the NVIDIA control panel, so you may need to do that, or your AMD control panel. It's just something to pay attention to, because as you're adjusting, whether it's the brightness or if you're adjusting the contrast or anything like that, it may end up making some of your text look pixelated. It's usually based off that setting. If it's spot on, I don't notice anything, but I noticed when I was actually just testing a bunch of different things, this is when it started to pop up. Making these adjustments can also affect white balance with this monitor, which is pretty solid across the entire monitor, but it will get more dim towards the edges. Just naturally it'll do that. But I have noticed, again, if you're adjusting some of these things, it may make this more noticeable for you. I don't think it's a big deal, but for people who write a lot or use lots of white backdrops for content creation, it may be an issue. Just in case I get questions about the ports here, I do wish there were 2 DP ports and 2 HDMI ports instead of just the 1 DP port and 3 HDMI ports. For the versions of the HDMI, I don't see any upside here to getting version 2.1 over 2.0, as consoles don't actually support native 21:9 aspect ratios yet. So this is actually just going to stretch out that image if you actually do use an Xbox or a PlayStation with this monitor. I just don't think it's worth it. Some people do, but in my opinion, it just doesn't look that good when that image is stretched out from the 16:9 to the 21:9. So that's going to wrap this video up, and to recap, this is an incredible monitor with very little downside, and the downsides here can be preference or user based, so they won't apply to everyone. The price tag here of $500 makes this an incredible deal if you can find this monitor, which is unfortunately pretty hard to find right now. I'll have a link for this monitor in the description, and Sceptre is currently working very hard to get all of their monitors back in stock like most other companies at the moment. If you can grab this monitor though, I don't think you will be disappointed one bit with its amazing curve, response time, colors, HDR, and vibrancy. There's a new best ultrawide monitor at my house, and I love gaming on this. I've been fortunate enough this year to work with Sceptre to do these reviews, and I've been really impressed with their Nebula lineup. I typically get these monitors, I review them after spending a month or so with them, and then send them back. This one though, I just couldn't let go and actually bought this from the company. Again, this monitor is amazing, and I'm not just saying that to say it for this video. I actually bought this because it's just too good to pass up. Well, that's going to be it for this one, everybody. If you have any questions about this monitor, let me know in the comment section. If you like the video, hit the like button for me. If you want to continue to follow along with all my content, hit the subscribe button for me. And as always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.